Order for breaking news, guys, your fan, I'm in our bro. I will Ghanatube for breaking news, Ben, I bet to jam, Miss Bedin in our bro. Ubekai, a sky train scandal, no $2 million, Professor Mayor Kufi, and then the other people now just say, Yadio Mako did not cause den order for updates, guys, your fan, about to jam, Miss Bedin in our bro. I will Ghanatube. First witness, Aqua Pimo Court, Ubekai say, Sky Train Board, no, Mote, no. First witness Aqua Pimo Court or say Sika $2 million now Sky Train deal no board no answer board now omote ye consent the Sky Train board no oma approve $2 million no board no oma approve into the CNC says $2 million no efa when they approve ya this Sika no come as Sky Train for no train so ama yes $2 million no ye dia kwa koma omo train be brain no train so ama na fancy board na omo tena ase responsible for that Sky Train deal no board no omo tena ase yes board no approve this $2 million no inti see and when they approve this asika no when they approve this asika no when no sign this asika no na nye bia asika no ekodu Sky Train for no ho na train no so no ewe fa odofo nsem na kwakopiem court first witness akwakopiem a just a board meeting no almost a board meeting no omo ye no omo approve $2 million no inti see when they approve sika no Sky Train no so ama $2 million na yes see approve so board no approve inti when they approve ye afei no nsem no kopiem court no krani nyina aba bede dendenden a just nsem aideja social media ne so a say miso bedi ni nyina bro ewo Ghanatube fo me ma mekasa anya tintima say obedi mechi ne akwakoje nsem wo nyina Sky Train deal ni nyina trial nsem ekokoso court ni nyina concern the Sky Train no ne ba isi a Ghanatube so
the $2 million Sky Train that never was, that trial that is in motion as we speak. A very interesting development earlier today because the first prosecution witness has been testifying, alleging minutes said to reflect board approval for payment is inaccurate. A former board member of the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund has testified in the Sky Train trial earlier today. He told an Accra High Court the board did not consider or approve payment for this said deal. So, who approved the payment of the $2 million and how exactly and where exactly did this $2 million specifically land in terms of the money and who approved its disbursement? Dennis Bobera, Madam Esquire, is joining me in the studio. You've been following this case quite closely. You were in court earlier today. What transpired? Yes, well, so trial has started in this particular matter, and that is the infamous $2 million Accra Sky Train project, which was supposed to have been carried out by the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, GIF. Now, we do know that as part of the proceedings that have been ongoing, there have been some interlocutory matters. That is to say, they are making some applications in between, seeking to get more information. The last time we had a conversation about this was the fact that the CEO, who is one of the accused persons in this, the former CEO rather, of GIF, Solomon Asamoah, had gone to the Court of Appeal. That's because at the High Court, he had requested that the prosecution should disclose board meetings, because the whole crux of prosecution's case is that you made a payment of $2 million for a Sky Train, which never happened. This prosecution says that was done without the approval of the board. Yeah. So he makes an application to the High Court that if you disclose the board minutes, we would see that indeed there was some conversation about this particular project. That was refused. He went to the Court of Appeal. That was also dismissed. Now they are back to the High Court for the main trial. Now, the first witness for prosecution is in the box, and this is what he testifies about. That is Yao Odamidakwa. He says that the only time he as a board member became aware of the said $2 million payment made was through the Auditor General's reports. I see. That was after the fact. But keep in mind, the prosecution's case is that
you made payment of $2 million for a sky train, which did not have the board's approval. Now, this is a former board member testifying that the only time he became aware of this payment was in an Auditor General's report.
That was even at the end of that audit year.
Exactly.
I see.
He goes on to also testify that due diligence reports should have been presented to the board for approval before payment. So this is somebody who is testifying in respect of his knowledge of the operations of the board. And he says in respect of such things, due diligence reports should have been presented for the board to approve before the payment. He also testifies to the fact that board minutes said to show deliberations concerning SkyTrain project not accurate. Now, this is the same matter that the former CEO, Solomon Asamoah, had requested for disclosure of the board minutes.
True.
Because his contention is that if such disclosures were made, then they would see the conversation at the board level regarding this particular project. But this former board member says that that suggestion is not accurate. He also goes on to testify to the fact that the board did not deliberate or take any decision on that particular project.
They didn't take any decision on it.
That's what he says. So the big question is, how did that money get paid? He also says that no funding was approved by the board for the project. And these are the key areas that he's been testifying about in respect of the matters that have to do with this Sky Train trial. Remember, he's a former board member. So if anything happened at the board level, the understanding is that he ought to have been a part of it, or he ought to have some knowledge about the operations of the board. But this is what he says. There are facts within his knowledge for the purpose of this particular trial, Alfred. So we're keeping eyes on this particular one, together with other matters which are also running, and we'll keep our viewers updated as and when we get information.
Indeed, because this is a no-brainer. I mean, if the board did not deliberate or take any decision on this SkyTrain project, obviously they will not be aware of any payment or approval for disbursement of monies.
Well, so that's what he says.
That's the base of the issue at play right now.
But it doesn't end here. He will undergo cross-examination. So that is also another leg to look out for.
Which, in this case, the accused will now have the opportunity.
Yes, to cross-examine this witness, to test the veracity or the veracity of these statements that have been made, or the credibility of this particular person.
I do appreciate you. Thank you. Dennis Prosecution Esquire is following this case in the courts every time it comes up. So we'll continuously get updates here on Ghana Tonight. But coming up next, tensions rise over the 9% base pay increase.
Out of when they breaking news, I told you every court, just say way information can see I could be more court concerning the SkyTrain scandal. The phone, yes, board no approve any $2 million be out. 80 Professor Mayor Kufi. Now no ye in charge of the board no. Yes, board no mutina no me meeting no. Obi anywhere oji mu say among ye say $2 million. Among this bed is $2 million. No the phone. Inti when they approve this as until now no train no so ayensan kan. Enti we are sure say sasika no $2 million no anyebia omode command kofo na ye beto train if you ho na na sika no koy anasa anko because board no say oma approve any $2 million therefore enti nsem no abaye deja e social media no so a Professor Ameyewe Kumfi first witness ena wakako pm court yaw dakwa ena wakako pm court a je say wakako gu Professor Ameyewe Kumfi ni mase poto CEO no board chair no wakako gu ni mase poto am so be nyina bro wo Ghanatube fuma mu fi se ba like na ma subscribe no ma share no ma hit notification bell so ma se na be ya abrini abibia drop content say ya wo wanya ne tempa no wa hwe mo do aha ena be de nsem nyina bi si Ghanatube so do makra mu nyina beda mu nyina se bebre